Tommy Robinson, honored to have you with us here for JNS TV on the quad alongside Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. I wanted to ask you, I believe it's your second trip to Israel here. How has your trip been so far? It's your first time since October 7th, I believe.
It is. I've had a fabulous reception. I'm very honoured to be here. I'm here as a guest of your government, which I'm very happy about. I'm grateful to them. I've received a lot of love since I've been here. First and foremost, I'm here as a journalist. I came here in 2016 to ask questions because I thought it would be ignorant for me to talk about the situation with Palestine and Israel unless I've visited the state of Israel and also visited areas under control of the Palestinian Authority or groups like that. So when I come last time, everything I thought I knew or everything I'd been told was the opposite. Yeah. And I've come here and I've been making videos again this time since I've got here, asking lots of questions and asking the questions for a British audience, because unfortunately, everything the media tell us in the UK, it's hard to trust, it's hard to believe. So there's lots of accusations against me, there's lots of slander against me, misinformation I would call it against me. And I've seen the same misinformation and lies told about Israel since I come here last time. Yeah. So in 2016, I come here and I paid some young Arab Muslims to take me to a Fatah-controlled refugee camp in Bethlehem. So I spent a week all over this country. But I wanted to go there to ask questions because I wanted to understand from their perspective. Now, when I went, they had no idea who I was. I actually had a falling out with my friend who came with me because he said, I haven't come here to get killed. And I guess if they would have known who I was risking my life at the time. But I did say to my mate, I said, mate, listen, right, if we get in, we spend a day there and we get out, it's going to be some experience. Yeah, we're going to go away with stories. And I went there and I spent time with this 4th generation refugee. And he explained to me that my children would be 5th generation, theirs will be 6th generation, theirs will be 7th generation. Never fund free Palestine. And I've got the footage of all of this, yeah? And I've still got that 2 years worth of footage, which I need to make use of, which I'm going to. But he said, never fund free Palestine. And I said, why? He said, because the money doesn't come to us. And I said, okay, who's oppressing you? As we're walking around this camp and the kids are there. And I asked where the football pitch is. They said, there isn't one. And I asked where the park is. They said, there isn't one. And for me, it was shocking. That the whole situation was shocking in the sense that I'm very vocal about my support of Israel. And I'm very vocal about my criticism of the non-existent state of Palestine anyway. And I explained to him that I left that camp after spending a day with them, wanting to give them money, wanting to help those kids. So it works. It works. And they keep them in that position, as I was explained by him, to bring European politicians in, to show the public this situation. But when I said to him, who's oppressing you? I expected him to say state of Israel. And he said the Palestinian Authority. I didn't know much about the Palestinian Authority. Yeah. So I said, what do you mean? And as we were walking through the camp, this woman blew up a bus. He called her a martyr. So we have a totally different opinion on these people. But he said she's a martyr, he's a martyr. And then I understood, which he explained, that these people lived on the camp. Yeah. And then he explained that if they leave the camp and they kill an Israeli, they then get money for the rest of their life. The equivalent of, if a school teacher's on £1,500 a month, equivalent of, they get 8 times that wage, which shocked me. Yeah. It really shocked me. And then I said, so the Palestinian Authority pay them. So someone leaves this camp, a Muslim, and goes and kills a Jew, and he corrected me. He said, no, an Israeli. I said, what do you mean? Like, it doesn't have to be a Jew. It just has to be an Israeli. Yeah? So then I thought, so that's the pay for slay. Now I know what's paid for slay. But they're rewarded. So then I looked up the Palestinian Authority, and I saw that the Palestinian Authority was funded by us, the British taxpayer. And it shocked the hell out. Because the British audience don't know this. Yeah? There's lots we don't know, but we would not know. And many who have just seen our government recognise the state of Palestine, rewarding October 7th attacks, but not just rewarding them, but recognising a state that still have a policy that they will use the money not to build hospitals or education, but to pay people to go and kill Israelis. So that was a shock for me as I walked around the camp. And as I said, I left that camp wanting to give them money. And the gentleman explained that they've had 2 times as much money as Germany after the World War, and they could all be living in villas. But instead they dig tunnels and buy weapons. So that was something I experienced. And then on that trip, when we left there, there's about 1,000 young Arabs and they're camel racing. I said, stop the car. And I had a I Love Israel t-shirt. And whether I was being provocative, provocative, I guess I'm quite controversial. And I thought,
Tommy Robinson,
yes,
being provocative?
Provocative. But I thought I'm going to walk into this crowd of young Arabs, Muslims, with my State of Israel t-shirt and ask them some questions, thinking I'd face hostility. No one batted an eyelid. No one cared. And then, as we're there was a Jewish family having a picnic. And then I thought, they are succeeding more than we could in London. You can have 1,000 young Pakistani Muslim mob and a Jewish family with kippas on having a picnic in the same park in London. You just couldn't do it. Yeah? They would face aggression and hostility. So in the state of Israel, this one we got back. So in the state of Israel, 1,000 young Arabs, it worked better than I'd say in Europe or European cities. And then I asked all the Muslims, all the Arab Muslims I met in the state of Israel, I had no idea there's 2 million peacefully living here. I had no idea. And I asked them, everyone I met, what do you think of Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump just got elected. We love Donald Trump, strong man, strong man. I thought they'd hate Donald Trump, but they respected his strong man stance. We need strong man in charge of America. And I was on the Golan Heights as the bombs are going off in Syria. And I asked an Arab Muslim there, what's it like for you in the state living in Israel? Thinking he's going to have criticism. And he said, it's great. I pray 5 times a day. I said, but what's it like? I hear it's an apartheid state. I hear all these different things. And he said, I pray 5 times a day. And he laughed at me. He said, you think I want to live over there? And it's when the bombs are going. He said, I'm happy here. And I've done the same on this trip. On this trip, I don't know if you've seen my first video, when I went to South Tel Aviv, I was shocked to find that Israeli Jews feel the same way we feel in Britain due to mass immigration that's come into their communities, made them feel like outsiders from Eritrean, Sudanese immigration, whether it be Christian or Muslim. But then I asked illegal immigrants in that community on this trip, how does Israel treat you? Are you discriminated against? No, not a negative word to say. So everything I also thought that Gaza had some massive wall. Yeah, I thought it had turrets and army barracks all the way along the whole perimeter of it, as in it was a prison. And then I realised that wall's about 20 metres long that we see on the news, and that there's just a field and fencing. And so everything I thought I knew, I come here to ask questions. I went back, and I obviously faced a lot of criticism back home for lots of reasons. Lots of accusations, but especially for my support of Israel. But whenever I meet anyone, I just say, well, have you ever been there? Have you ever spoke to third generation Muslim refugees? Have you ever spoke to anyone in these communities? I also went to, on that last trip in 2016, I went to the settlers, to see what that was about. And I was in the middle of the desert. There's nothing in sight. And in the middle of here was about 10 families living that had made it green and beautiful. And this is what I'm told there can be no peace for. That's what the argument. So I went challenging my own mind, asking my own questions, same as what I'm doing here now. And then I went back, and unfortunately, we don't trust the media. I have a support base that do not trust the media. I also have some in my movement that I believe Israel's losing the propaganda war. I believe they're really struggling. I believe that
I think we may have already lost the propaganda war.
Well, Iran and Qatar are winning.
Well, they have a strategy. And I don't think we woke up in time to have a strategy. But Tommy, I want to ask you, your trip here has not been without controversy. You talk about yourself as a controversial figure. And possibly because of your roots of the organization that you funded, the England Defence League, and some of the people around you in those moments. And I think there's probably a little bit of paranoia about the Nazi symbols or things that people interpret as anti-Semitic. Could you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yep.
And potentially your own evolution?
Yeah. So my views have never changed, not once. I haven't moved my views. What's changed is public opinion. That's what's changed. I've stayed here. The whole rest of the country have caught up. Yeah. When I started the English Defence League in 2009, we had a Jewish division. We had a Sikh division and we had a Hindu division. At every single English Defence League demonstration, a non-white person spoke and a gay person spoke. I organised that. I made sure of that. Yeah. So the English Defence League, the entire time I led it, there's a domestic extremism unit based in Scotland Yard, and it's their job to categorise organisations. The English Defence League was never even categorised as a far-right organisation. It was a centrist organisation. The media told you it was far-right. The media repeated to you 10,000 times it was far-right. The same way the media keep repeating the word genocide and Israel. And after saying it 1,000 times, 2,000 times, people just take that as a matter of fact. So the English Defence League was never a far-right organisation. Yes, we had our problems. Yes, it was a nationalist organisation that attracted the brave and the stupid, and at times the racist. because the media kept telling them it was their organisation. Purity comes with time. We started off from nothing. I was working on a building site. I was 25 years old. I was successful. I had 7 houses, 2 businesses. And 6 months later, I was leading the biggest street protest movement Europe has seen. And I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't understand politics. I didn't understand the media. I didn't understand left wing, right wing, and I didn't care about it, like most working class people in Britain. It didn't interest me. But when we started, I started with a strong stance to do with Israel and to do with the Jewish community. And the reason why is because I've grown up in Luton Town. I understand jihad. I understand the way they think. The Luton Islamic Centre, the Salafist Islamic Centre of Luton, is the old synagogue. Okay? That's the home of the Stockholm bomber, the home of the Westminster Bridge attacker. All of them come out of that mosque that used to be the synagogue. There's no Jews left in Luton. I told a story last night about an experience when I was 12 years old with my friends, and there were some Orthodox Jews, and one of my friends was throwing things at them. And when he was throwing things at them, this is on the outskirts of Luton, he was jumping up and down saying how proud his mum would be. And that shocked me. But how can your mum be proud? He said, they're Jews, they're Jews. And for me, it's like, what? He's a Muslim, yeah? So I'd listened, I'd learned lots. I'd gone to school with many Muslims. I'd heard the hatred of Jews. We had, so people understand the real history of the English Defence League, we held a demonstration outside the Israel Embassy in support of Israel, okay? We flew over Rabbi Nachman Shifra, the surfing rabbi from California, a very strong conservative rabbi who is still a friend of ours, yeah? So the smears have always been there. The attacks from establishment organisations who are attacking me again now have always attacked us, yeah? But I differentiate the self-appointed voices of the British Jewish community to the British Jewish community.
Do you understand, though, that people may have some skepticism or even paranoia? I mean, you know the history of the Jewish people. It's thousands of years of discrimination. It's the BNP, it's, you know, the Cable Street riots, all of these things. Do you understand where that skepticism could come from?
I done the Holocaust Memorial Museum today. I understand it a lot better now.
You do?
After that, yeah. I understand why members of the Jewish community get so, whether it be protective, passionate, angry, upset by anti-Semitic tropes. Because things have been said before that, and I think, really? What are you talking about? Why are you getting so upset about that? But after doing the tour today, I understand a lot better from that. But in the sense of the dehumanisation, it wasn't just start murdering Jews, it was a propaganda for years.
Started with words.
To get it into a position. So I understand it better after today. That's what I come out of that museum thinking to myself, well, I get it a bit better. I understand it a bit better. I also understand the paranoia and the concern, but I also don't believe that some of the actions and words that are coming out of some of these organisations is to do with paranoia or concern. I believe they're acting on behalf of an establishment narrative. Now, let's face it, the current Labour government's narrative is to be against Israel. And it's to be against Israel and to throw the Jews under the bus for the sake of a block vote that they need from a section of the Islamic community. That's what's going on. Now, the organisation, I don't know if I've even given credence and mentioned their name, that keep attacking me since I've been here, are in bed with the Labour government. They stand alongside the Labour government, the same government that just recognised this a terrorist state. The same government and that group are also aligned with and in bed with groups who are calling from the river to the sea, the genocide of the only Jewish state. They are also trying to enforce and push, then support a Islamophobia bill that would make it illegal for us to tell the truth, even about October 7th. Yeah. So those groups, I believe they are massively problematic for the Jewish community. Same in the United States, there's certain groups and organisations. And the reason why I see that is because there's this conspiracy, which I'm attacked with all the time, that Jews are responsible for mass immigration. That Jews and Israel are the ones flooding Europe. Yeah, that's what. There's a section of the far right and far left and the Islamic community who all align on this accusation. And I think that groups like them don't help at all because they claim to be the voice of the Jewish community while supporting mass open border immigration into the country. I've just met 3 of your government ministers. All of them are concerned about mass immigration into Europe. They're not calling for it. They don't want it. They're worried about our culture, as are we. I walk through the market in Jerusalem to be followed by young British Jews singing God Save the King. Young British patriotic Jews who have had to leave their country. So I think that a massive separation has to happen for me. I believe, for the Jewish community, so that people don't continue to label Jews. And this is a Jewish problem. Yeah, that's what I think. And I think that the future of Europe, which I interviewed the Speaker of your House today, the future of Europe does not belong to weak leaders like Keir Starmer or Macron. The future leaders of the world are going to be strong, like Donald Trump. The future populist parties of Europe, which we've reached out to with our movement, and your government, from what I understand, have reached out to as well, many of them. And I think that we need to look at not what we disagree on, but what we agree on with partners. And we agree on Western civilization, democracy, equality. And you are the only country in the Middle East that believes in those values, and you're surrounded by, 21 or 23 countries that commit human rights violations, and there is no freedom of religion or protection for minorities in those countries. So I look for allies. I'm here to make friendships. And I don't want British Jews to leave Britain. I know many people here want them to come to Israel. We don't want them to have to leave Britain. We don't want to exchange hard-working, patriotic, integrated community, high taxpayers community. We don't want to swap them for jihadists and rapists from the Middle East. And that's currently the exchange that's going on.
You know, you mentioned just a few minutes ago that a lot of times you've been accused of things by people who attach themselves to your movement, your ideology in some cases. I just wanted to ask you, because it's such a frequent accusation that we hear about you, that you foment hatred against Muslims, or that you have even helped or contributed to the instigation of violence against the Muslim community. And then, of course, the background that you talked a little bit about with the English Defense League and some of the anti-Semitic sentiments that exist in some of these circles, be it in North America or in Europe. What is your response to those who truly are racist or are anti-Semitic that attach themselves to your movement, which from what we've heard today sounds like pure patriotic nationalism, not something dangerous?
They don't attach themselves to my movement. I'm hated by them. I'm a Mossad agent.
You're hated by the anti-Semites.
I'm hated by the anti-Semites, but look, my argument, or what I've always said, you have to understand where I'm from. Yeah? I'm from a town called Luton Town, 30 miles north of London, where white English are a minority, where if you lined up my 30 best mates and friends, many of them are not white, many of the people I love are not white. I love Muslims. I have Muslim kids I grew up with. They don't follow the teachings of Islam. We have a disagreement on what Islam is. Yeah, I describe them as cultural Muslims. Yeah, but they still feel the need to defend themselves, because you can't talk about Islam without them feeling like you're attacking them. You can criticize Christianity, and it doesn't mean you're attacking Christians. You're celebrated as an atheist. But yet, if you discuss things around Islam, it's got this special protection that you're just not allowed to talk about it. We can't attack. So they don't like me, they hate me. I always have the argument that when it comes to multiculturalism, I feel that everyone gets blamed. I don't think multiculturalism's failed. Not in my town, it hasn't. Not if you line up my friends, it hasn't. We're all the sons of immigrants. Yeah. What's failed is Islam. That's it. Sikhs haven't failed to integrate. Jews haven't failed to integrate. Hindus haven't failed to integrate. They haven't caused problems. In fact, there would not even be a debate around immigration in the UK unless we had the problems that come from Islamic immigration. That's how I feel. That's how I see it. That's my experience growing up in my hometown. So the accusations against me are unfounded. They're the same smear. I don't understand. So when certain people attack me, I think, but you've seen the lies yourself. Is Israel committing a genocide? We all know it's not. Yeah. But they continually keep saying it is. So they continually keep making accusations against Israel with lies. And I think that, I just say it last night, it took 50 years for people to start denying the Holocaust. It took within a week or days for October 7th to be denied. Now, when I talk about Israel losing, obviously, you're not losing the war, yeah? You've been pretty much standing on your own and surrounded. Not just on the Gaza Strip. I don't think people understand, which is what I come here to show the videos. That's the Gaza Strip. It's literally, I can throw a stone and reach the Gaza Strip. Now, 5,000 jihadists come across that border. We've got 40,000 jihadists on the terror watch list in Great Britain. I come here in 2016 to understand how Jews in the state of Israel live, because I knew that whatever problems you face, we're going to face. And I knew that from the demographic change of the UK, but also the inability of the government to deal with the Muslim Brotherhood, Hizb ut-Tahrir, and all these sort of extremist organisations who are dealt with in the Arab world and United Arab Emirates, but they're out of control in the Western Europe. So I come here to look, and I remember standing in Samaria, Judea, and seeing your bus stops in 2016, and seeing the bollards. And I thought, yeah, we're going to have this. If we want to, we're going to end up with a future like this. We now have Christmas markets. We can't have Christmas markets without armed police and what I'd call diversity barriers, big bollards. They try to hide them now in different pots, but they're to prevent cars ramming people at every one of our important dates. Yeah. So I come here to learn how you live in 2016. To go back to Britain and think, right, our country's going to change. Yeah. You're surrounded. We're surrounded. We are now surrounded in towns and cities across the UK, from France to Sweden to Germany. 6 terrorist attacks in the last 18 months in Germany from Afghans? All of these problems. So I come here, and then the governments, what we see, and when I come in 2005, your IDF had dragged, I met a Jewish girl, beautiful girl, who was very upset because her and her family had been dragged from their land. Yeah. They lived in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Most people don't understand this. Mm-hmm. So when we hear about genocide, clearing everyone out of one place, yeah, where the Jews and
ethnic cleansing,
every Jew was forcefully removed,
exactly,
against their wishes by the state of Israel, by the IDF. So she explained to me, we were dragged from the land that we've lived in for generation after generation that we didn't want to leave. Now I think that at that time, trying to work out what Israel was doing, it was appeasing. That's what I think. You thought you could solve the problem, give them Gaza Strip and they'll leave us alone. No, it's not about that. So I understand how they think. I also understand that Hamas have not got their eyes on Israel. They've got their eyes on London. They've got their eye, and that's the same for Hezbollah. And I don't think people quite understand that at that border you can throw a stone and it's the Gaza Strip and there's an army of jihadists. And at that border, whether it be the Lebanese, and at that border, the Syrian at the time. I don't know if people quite understand the size of Israel, the population of Israel, and the surrounding Islamic nations, and how dominant, and how much money comes from Qatar, and how much money comes from Iran. And I think that when I talk about you losing the propaganda war, is that by October 8th, proxy armies were across the West, in every capital city, winning public opinion. And winning public opinion because every university Islamic society has been controlled by Hizb ut-Tahrir. Yeah? And our government have not dealt with it because they've been scared to deal with it because they don't want to be called racist or Islamophobic or any of this.
So, well, Qatar also owns half of London and the other half is owned by the Islamic Republic of Iran.
They are more than our royal family.
Unbelievable.
Family.
But then you can't, so I know, I see all this. But as a youngster in Luton, I understood jihad because I had gone down when I understand what it's like for you living here. Well, not actually what it's like for you living here, but not to that concept. But because every person you meet here knows someone who's been murdered. Or someone who's died.
It's a small country. We're all affected by all of it.
But when I talk about Luton, I went to school with lads who died fighting for ISIS. When you see a big terrorist on the news, just think, I used to hang out with it. Roger Ibrahim Anson, the big ginger convert who's coming out now. There's been big news. But I went to school with that kid. He's my mate. Yeah, he converted in jail after an armed robbery. So I get it. And so when I talk about growing up, terrorism and jihadists, I'm not talking about a faraway field in the Middle East. I'm talking about they're queuing up next to me in that West. They're next to me in Asda. I see them in shops. We have to share our town square with these barbarians. Yeah. So I've spoke about these issues, and the issues I spoke about for 15 years, people didn't want to hear. And rather than listen to them, the easiest thing was to attack me. And because of my upbringing, I'm a working class lad from Luton Town. I'm not an angel. I don't claim to be an angel. I don't claim to be perfect. I've never claimed any of those things, but it was never going to be female nurses or doctors that stood up against jihad on the streets of the UK. So because of my upbringing in probably the most violent town in Britain, in a poverty-stricken area, when I got the first punch on the nose, I didn't back down.
Is there anything you would do differently if given the chance?
Other than stay physically fit, no. I think that I struggled at times with being Tommy Robinson, living under threat, trying to deal with those things. But even if you make a mistake, I wouldn't change any of them because all of those things bring you to where you are now, the experiences you've lived. I feel like I've done my apprenticeship. I feel like I've done my apprenticeship. If you look at our recent street rallies, I wouldn't have been able to pull off 1 million people turning up, peaceful rallies, multiple peaceful rallies, if I hadn't experienced the things I'd experience as a leader with the English Defence League. I learned how to deal with the police. I learned how to stop infiltration. And we don't allow face coverings at our demonstrations now. You are not allowed to have a face covering. We will take it off you. Because if you allow face coverings, you allow the government agencies an opportunity to infiltrate like they did on January 6th, an opportunity to provoke violence. And that may sound like a conspiracy. Look up Special Demonstration Squad. Our government have an organisation called Special Demonstration Squad, it's CLAPS now, whose job it was to infiltrate peaceful organisations and to provoke trouble, media act as a weapon of the totalitarian state in order to demonise and delegitimise your message. Why am I getting called a racist? Why am I getting called an extremist? Why am I getting called far right? To delegitimise the message that I bring. That's it. To turn people off, to make me toxic, to make it so people are too scared to sit here and have this conversation. I saw the backlash you got over a photo, right, last year. That backlash and that sort of thing is to prevent people sitting down and having a conversation like this. Because after the conversation, people might, God forbid, listen and think, well, they seem like that seems quite balanced. They don't want that. That's what censorship's about. It's what the attack is about. It's what the current winning trend is now Israeli agent. So they used to use extremist racists to shut people up. Now they just accuse you of being Mossad or getting 7,000 man tweet.
Yeah, I mean, where do we claim this 7,000 a tweet?
I keep asking.
Oh, well, I'm owed millions, so whoever's paying it, I need the money.
Tommy, this week there's a huge controversy in the UK, which kind of brings to light everything that you're talking about, and that is the football controversy of Aston Villa not allowing the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans to go, the West Midland police not wanting to stand up to the hatred that they could face, and the government trying to convince them. And, I have a very simple question. Has Britain gone past the point of no return? Is the march to Islamization something you can still stop, reform can stop, anybody in Britain can stop?
I would have said 12 months ago, no. I would say now, I'm optimistic. The country's awake. The public are awake. The government have surrendered. The police have surrendered. The public ain't going to surrender. There's a revolution brewing in Great Britain. You see what they've just done to your fans? Did you see the way they turned it with the media and the politicians? They turned it that the Tel Aviv fans were the problem.
Were the problem, exactly.
Gaslighting
101.
That when they went to Amsterdam, which is when innocent Jews come under violent attack.
It was a pogrom.
They were attacked from everywhere.
And they're saying now that they were the hooligans.
Now they're saying they were the problem.
Yeah.
Because they sung a song or something. But that's
Which is funny, because if you want to talk about football chants, there's a lot worse chants in England or Argentina or Chile or any of these places.
Let's not confuse a few football fans out of thousands singing whatever chant with Jews being hunted down by gangs of Muslims on mopeds, violently attacked. So we know what happened in Amsterdam because I followed it, yeah? You know what happened, but the public don't. So at the minute, all the public again in Britain is the fact that Tel Aviv fans are racist and extremists and cause problems. And that's not the truth. So I know that's not the truth again on another bullshit, excuse my French, another story, that's lies, yeah? Now the reality is, they probably can't keep you safe. They probably can't keep your fans safe coming to the city of Birmingham. Birmingham is a 30% Muslim population. The area where the stadium is a 70% Muslim population. Your fans arriving at the airport of Birmingham probably can't even get to a hotel, because every single taxi driver is a Muslim, which then leaves them vulnerable, because as we saw in Holland, it was the Uber drivers and taxi drivers who were setting them up. Yeah? So there's a real situation for the government and the police, and what they've done is surrender. But the problem is, if this isn't stopped right now, then what's next? They'll be saying that a plane from Israel can't land in this airport, or this airport, or this airport. Forget the football fans. Football fans are the first little part of it. Yeah? If they win on this, and how have they won on this? They've won on this because at our last election, 5 pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas MPs were elected as independents.
Islamists were elected into parliament.
Pro-jihadists, total sympathisers to October 7th. You just have to go through their comments, yeah? But they were elected into parliament. Now, they and that vote bloc that voted for them would have always usually voted for the Labour Party. So what are the Labour Party trying to do right now? They're trying to pull back that.
Bring them back.
How do they bring them back? By recognising the state of Palestine. So the Jews in the UK, unfortunately, you're now where I've been, because I've grown up in Luton, which when I was born in 1982, one mosque, now 45. 50,000 Muslims. 50% of the town is now Muslim. Now, in 2013, I looked at the demographical projected growth forecast on the government website for my town, because I've got 3 kids. What do I do? Yeah, I know the problems in Luton. I know the rapes. I know the terrorism. What's the future look like for my town? The Pakistani and Bangladeshi community were going to increase by 2013 to 2030, 17-year period. They're going to increase by 70 to 77%. That's the increase. What's the white and black community increasing by? 1.2 to 1.4%. So what do the Labour local council know? They know, and the government know, that the future of holding on to politics in this town is not from a white working class Englishman. Yeah, and it's not from the Jews. Not in the UK. Not anymore. There's 300,000? That's going to go down and down and down, right? But there's 5 million Muslims, and that's going to go up and up and up. So the future...
So how do you have hope?
How do I have hope? I have hope because of September 13th. I have hope because 2 years ago, we sat down and we put together a plan that if you try and set up a political party, you need hundreds of millions of pounds. It's impossible, yeah? And it's going to take you 30 years, probably. But if you change the culture, you're going to change the politics. So what have we lost in the UK? We've lost what you have. You have a very, even if you're left or right, you've got your sense of identity in the State of Israel. You've got your flag, you've got your religion. It brings all of you together.
Belonging.
It's a sense of belonging. Lone soldiers. I went for a meal the other day with 20 lone soldiers. It's inspirational to see these young men flying from every corner of the globe for something that they know is bigger than them. We don't have anything that's bigger than us. What's bigger than us? Like, everyone in the UK now thinks it's us, as in me, as an individual. The future is about me and my family. We don't have that greater, wider good or that greater, wider community. We just don't.
It's actually quite sad, because I would think that the United Kingdom always has and does. They have such a history that is positive. A lot of times we hear about the negative, but it's also positive. So I think that a positive nationalism is very, very welcome.
But we created a generation of selfish cowards.
Right.
Yeah? But I
self-haters.
Self-hatred.
Well, that's through the education system.
Yeah.
Self-haters, Jew-haters, same difference. It's all coming through the education. What people need to understand, what Israelis need to understand, what Jews need to understand, is that the hatred of Israel and hatred of Jews is coming through an education system, through universities, yeah, through far left professors, through the alliance of the left with the Islamists coming together. It's not coming from the working class. No. We're the working class. Now, the vocal minority who have took over London every week, and New York, and Canada, and Toronto, all these cities, yeah, they're the ones that are allowed to have that opinion. They're allowed to promote. And we, as Europeans and Brits, have felt afraid to speak our mind for 2 decades. Yeah, and that fear has managed to silence a population. I am fully aware now that that bubble's burst. The dam has gone, and people are now not going to be silent. The silent majority won't be silent. You saw that on September 13th. Do you know September 13th? We had no coaches, nothing funded. That was individuals coming from every corner of Britain, paying big money that they don't have to get to the capital city. Yeah, our opposition, which is funded, all of the groups who attack us are funded by corporations. They got 5,000 people. They've lost. The media have lost. The media still think. I sat like this Channel 4 journalist last night. You don't have the monopoly anymore. You think you do.
It's been democratized.
You're finished. No one is passionately supporting you. No one's going to sign up for you. They're going to sign up for us because they trust us. At least what I say, people know I think. Yeah? They don't have to agree on it, but they know I stand by my beliefs. Yeah? What do they even believe? Who do you even work for? You change your mind like left, right and centre. So I just think that, I think there's a mass awakening that's happened. Unfortunately for Israel, October 7th had to be part of that. We had to see the failure of governments across the West. We had to see the two-tier policing. The two-tier policing that's now British vocabulary is everything I've seen my whole life. Yeah? So I know about that, but the wider public didn't. But they got to see it. When Hamas took over the capital city, when they called for jihad, when they're calling for the gassing of the Jews, when they're flying the Hezbollah flag, they got to see that the police do not enforce the law against this group. They got to see it. But then they smash our doors off over a tweet. And everyone now knows that. Everyone now can see that. We also got to see the corruption of the judiciary, which again, very interesting for me to show a British audience, is that you're facing the same judicial problems in this country through your Supreme Court. I think people have been shocked. I've just done an interview today with the gentleman who was trying to challenge your Supreme Court, who faced big backlash in this country. But you have a Supreme Court, or you have a court system here that prevents your country deporting rapists that have come from any of the African nations. That will shock the British public, because the British public are told this is an apartheid Jewish state, that you haven't got immigration problems. You've got big immigration problems, same as the rest of Europe. So yeah, as I said, I think that my job, or why I'm here to make friends, I'm here to understand. I think that the era we're about to move into has strong leadership, has strong conservative values, and people need to come together, not look at where they're different, look at this is a Western civilization and people need to defend it and need to look for their allies in defending it. And their allies aren't going to be the Labour Party, right?
Any political ambitions for you, Tommy?
I'd rather not. That's the truth. I don't, Reform are currently riding the wave. You can ride the wave, yeah? 9 million people voted for Keir Starmer, 9 million. 20 million people didn't vote. Those 20 million, that's us. When I say that's us, I mean that's working class Britain. Why don't they vote? I don't know anyone that's voted. I never voted.
Really?
I don't know anyone. No, you lie, no one votes. Why don't we vote? We're not rich enough and not poor enough growing up for it to make a difference. And also the fact that we've been told our voice doesn't matter. Now, how do we get those 20 million people politicised? Through identity, through culture, not through politics. People don't care from working class backgrounds, but we do care about our culture and our identity, and we see it at risk. So I see our job, or my role, is to captivate, electrify, and wake up that 20 million, and then get them politicised. Because if you can get that 20 million politicised, you can control the next election. But I'm learning from the Muslim community. I'm looking at the Muslim vote and how they operate, and they get the position of having all the political parties want to negotiate with them because they can swing elections. I think that over the next 3 years, we will build a cultural revolution and a cultural movement like never seen before. And our numbers are going to shock everyone. As I was very confidently said before September 30th, this is going to be the biggest event Britain's ever seen. Because I've got my finger on the pulse. I know what the reaction I get on the streets. I know how people are feeling. People are at the end of their tether. And our job is to do that in the right way and to win the hearts and minds of the public. We're doing that. We're doing that. And we brought together, as I said, 15 different influencers. Katie Hopkins, she's come out here before. People who have been silenced. We all sat down. Jordan Peterson flew in and said, look, we need to agree on values. Free speech. We're all against the Islamisation of Great Britain. We need to tell the truth about it, not be cowards about it. We're against the LGBT indoctrination of school children. I don't care if you want to be gay. I'll defend your rights as a gay man. But I do not want this transgenderism enforced. Ideology. It's something far bigger for children.
Absolutely.
We've all had enough of this. Why is it being put into all our education? So we come together on these values and decided that if we come together under one banner and introduce celebration identity, then we can wake the public up slowly. And we're 2 years into that. It's working. There's something huge happening in Great Britain. And across Europe, if you look at the voting bans, and I think it's great of your government to make sure that they're not isolated on their own, because we all share the same values. If you look into the Middle East, who shares the values of democracy, liberty, Western civilization? Who? For us, who? It's Israel. It's Israel. We're partners. So, and the fact that, and the fact that, look, when the Hindus were attacked in Leicester, the first phone call I made was to the Hindu representatives of the UK and said, we're with you. Okay, we're not going to stand by and watch you be terrorised by the Islamic supremacist groups. We're not going to. It's the same with the Jews. There's no big funding issue or Mossad issue about it. It's what right and wrong. It's right and wrong. And what's happening currently is wrong. It's wrong what's happening to the Jews, and it's wrong what's happening to us. And it goes against the wishes of the British public. Put it to a democratic vote. Do the British public wish to recognise a Palestinian state? That's democracy. Don't have some 9 million. They got voted in off 9 million. 80% of the country didn't vote for Keir Starmer. Yet here he is recognising a terror state. Well, that's a decision that should be for the British public to make. Not for Keir Starmer to appease and pander to his Islamic bloc.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. I know you have many commitments. We don't want to keep you from that. But thank you so much for joining us today.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tommy.